Thank you, Residency Unlimited, for inviting me to talk about my work and about the findings of my recent research. And I do want to give special thanks to you, Natalie, because as you said, we met recently and I told you about what I was doing and you immediately, you supported me and you are very generous with your contacts, your ideas, your comments, and you have been amazing. And I really thank you very much for that. And I also want to thank everybody today for joining me, because I know that now with all the COVID events and Zooms and everything, we must become very selective of what we choose to attend. So the fact that you are here with me today, I do appreciate it, because I know there's too many things going on. And welcome to my Meet Over Lunch, which of course in London is nothing but lunch. I mean, it's more like almost evening and very dark, and I'm very happy that I can do this now. To those of you who don't know me yet, as Natalie said, my name is Francesca Bellini Joseph. I'm Colombian, but I live in London, and I teach about the art market. That means the structure, the composition, and the dynamics. And my area of expertise, as you said, is online learning, which I have done since 2014. And that has allowed me to reach people from everywhere in the globe. And it has been an amazing experience, because it allows you to bring people from everywhere and kind of sit them together in the same classroom to teach about or to discover the world of art. And obviously now with all these Zooms and so on, it has become normal to do this, but it's been normal for the past 6 months. So I'm kind of happy to see also that this is now becoming so easy to do, and people kind of enjoy it as well and want to participate in these sort of events, which in a way is also online learning, if you like. And I don't want to make a long introduction about me and my career, because as Natalie said, you can see it online, you can see it in the invitation, and I don't want to waste time saying things about me, but I do want to talk about those aspects in my career that I think are relevant to this session of Meet Over Lunch. And basically that is that I went to art school in 2001. I went to La Universidad de los Andes in Bogotá, and obviously during this experience, these 5 years, and then when I was out of school, my main expectation was to become an artist, like many of you here today. And the expectation was to be able to make a living of producing art, you know, and I guess this is probably a common desire in all of us, in all the artists. So I'm a trained artist, like most of you here today, but unlike you, I hope, I abandoned my art practice to pursue other opportunities in the art world. And you might think, why did I drop out? And the reason is that as an artist, when I left art school, when I finished art school, I experienced many obstacles and many frustrations and many lows. And I was kind of trying to find a voice in a very competitive market. And while I was experiencing all this, all I wanted to achieve was what all artists want to achieve, which is basically making a living of what they love and what they do. And during this period, I mean, during art school and a few years after art school, I experienced three main problems. The first critical problem that I experienced was that at some point, I felt totally invisible. And the word is invisible, not invincible. It was completely, nobody is looking at me. Because curators, galleries, collectors, they were not looking at my work. And to be fair, they were not looking at other people that I knew, people that studied with me, that were very talented and so on. And I did land a few group shows that were very interesting in very good institutional spaces, but it all felt very random. I didn't feel that I was waving a strong fabric, if you like, that would sustain my career over time. It was just random. It was more like, the feeling was more like spider ballooning in the air, trying to go from one place to hopefully a better one. But in this type of, if you are familiar with spider ballooning, in this type of travels, the mortality rate is very high. And this is how I was feeling. The second problem that I experienced was that I was underpaid or unrewarded, if you like. And I did sell a few pieces now and then, but everything felt very occasional. I was not able to see how that could be financially sustainable over time, especially not at the pace of sales that I was making. And honestly, my motivation was not only to sell, but it was to gain a stable income, which I think is at some point in our lives is more important than actually just selling one work here and the other work there and so on. So obviously, as you get older, this idea of steady income becomes more important because you have a family, because you have more expenses, all these sort of things. So I was not making enough money. I aspired to be financially independent from my family as soon as possible. And I wanted to do all that while doing what I wanted to do and what I knew. And the third problem that I experienced was that when you feel invisible, when you are not making enough money, and all the rest of dimensions in which these things are likely to manifest, that affects your mental health at some point. And I mean, your confidence is low. It's hard to find the motivation to continue. And what happens when you feel all these things, and I don't know, maybe some of you have felt this, is that you stagnate. And by definition, when you stagnate, it's impossible to move forward. It's impossible to make changes. It's very difficult to find solutions. It's even very difficult to think creatively about all the things that you could do and all the alternatives you could explore. And when this happens, basically it feels like you're standing by yourself in an open field on a foggy night and you can't see through. So I made some choices that took me away from my art practice, which in the end, for me, it worked excellent. And I say excellent because because obviously at the time I felt that I had failed, and which is not a great feeling to have. But over the years, I gained so much experience and I've gained so much knowledge from all the things that I have done. For example, being involved in galleries, in art fairs, in collection management, in art market analysis, in education, in philanthropy, in collecting, and much more. And all that experience has allowed me to be here with you today in a very privileged position of being able to speak freely about these things as they happen to us and as they are likely to affect us. And without having to, and I can say these things without having to put on a face, a happy face and a smile and try to let people believe that everything is okay when sometimes it is not okay. And the reason why I can do this is because I have no curators to impress and I have no galleries to seduce. And so I can just do it. And I hope that this frankness inspires some of you today somehow. So I have summarized what I was experiencing as an artist back in the early 2000s. But in relation to the research that I'm presenting today, the important question for me was, do artists experience the same things, the same problems? Do you experience them? Because it's not enough if I felt them, if I believe that perhaps this is how artists feel. I needed to prove or to find evidence that this is actually something that goes beyond me and is representative of a sentiment that is commonly shared by artists. So to answer this question, I surveyed nearly 200 artists from around the globe. I want to tell you a bit about the methodology that I used, so you can get a better image of what the survey aims and what the type of artists I wanted to survey. It was important for me to survey a certain type of artist, not all artists, and this is the reason why I didn't open this to everybody. I wanted to focus on a type of artist for whom building an institutional career is very important. And why did I choose to do this? First of all, because it's my professional and personal interest, this type of artist, and also because artists who place value in institutions, in museums, in residency programs, and so on, are more likely to struggle in their careers as they look for balance between institutional endorsement and commercial stability or success. So if you have other artists that are more interested in a commercial, in developing in a commercial sector, for them, probably they don't struggle with this balance. Is the artist looking for institutional endorsement who are more likely to struggle with this? And the underlying fear that is constantly sustaining the ambivalence between curatorial recognition and money is, I believe, the fear of selling out, which is a very disempowering way of living. And I believe it is a fear that many artists who have this interest are likely to experience at some point in their lives and in their careers. So to reach this type of artist, I couldn't do it by myself, obviously. I couldn't do it by just publishing this on Facebook or anything like this. So I asked 6 international institutions for support. And I asked them to share this survey with their artist network. And here I would like to thank Residency Unlimited again, because they were one of these institutions that sent the survey. And I also want to thank Pioneer Works in New York, Delfina Foundation and Gasworks in London, NS Arte and Flora Ars Natura in Bogotá. Thanks to all of you, I was able to access artists from everywhere, and artists that are not in my network. I don't know them. So it was very interesting because it makes the results and the research as a whole much more robust and rich. And only China is not represented in the sample, although other Asian countries are. And it just shows that I don't have a network in China. So eventually I will want to know more about how they see this problem. So let's talk about the survey. What is the survey about and what is the objective? So basically the objective is to identify artists' pain points in their careers and the professional skills and topics they feel that by acquiring them or knowing them, they would improve or the careers would improve. So that's the main idea of this research. It is not about academic knowledge. It's not about theory or history of art. It's not about artistic practices, about conceptual development. I think art schools and residency programs do an amazing job in this area, and I wouldn't necessarily change anything about it or try to bring solutions to problems I don't think that actually exist in this sector. They do an amazing job. And my interest is more where I believe there is something missing, and it's about personal and professional development skills that can represent an obstacle for a sustainable and balanced career and life. And this survey is short. It consists of only 5 close-ended questions, that, as you will see, they aim at measuring the level of interest from respondents in 5 topics. And then I asked them 2 open-ended questions where respondents could write down freely their thoughts and their comments and their answers. And at some point when I started reading those answers, it was just fascinating. And I guess those 2 last questions are really the core of at least what I wanted to achieve. So I'm going to share the results now, the overview of the results with you. And I will start with let me see. Let's try to do this. Can you see this? Yeah, great. So I spoke about this. So yeah, this is the main question. Do artists experience the same problems? Okay, so question 1. You can still see it, right? Yes. But someone is making me signals of making it bigger. Okay, let me see. Oh, okay. See if I can do something, because I want to look at my notes as well, and I have them on the same computer. So how can I do this? Let's do something. Is it okay? Because I want to look at my notes. And so I'm going to make this slightly bigger. And I'm going to close this. And hopefully, because sorry, I thought I could see them. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Thank you for the guidance. Okay, so let's start with the first pie chart. So this is the first question that aimed to capture the level of interest of respondents in learning about the journey of the artist in the art market. And here we can see that more than half the respondents said they are interested in this topic, and 24% said they are extremely interested. And these 2 groups combined represent 76% of respondents. And I was very surprised to see this result, to be honest, because I was convinced that this percentage was going to be much smaller. And not because I think they don't want to know. I believe that if not all artists, but most of them want to know about the art market, how it works, but they don't want to express it in a community that demonizes that interest. But if you look at the results, only 3% of respondents said emphatically they are not interested in learning about it. And again, for me, these results are enlightening, because as we all know, the rhetoric of the art world is largely anti-market. And there is an assumption that showing interest in it can corrupt the artist and their practice somehow. And this notion is based on the belief that the artist who shows interest in understanding how the art market works is a sellout. It claims that the art market seduces artists into doing something that is fundamentally wrong, and it assumes that they are pure until the dark forces of the art market make them sin. And the idea of sin is selling out. And it manifests in producing, for example, in producing art to meet market demands. So this is like a very brief summary of in general, how the art market is perceived in the art world. And if you think about it, it is very biblical, right? It's about evil, it's about the good and the sin and the evil and all of these things. But not only that, is a reductive view of what the market means in all its complexity. But most seriously, I believe, is that it shows no trust in artists whatsoever and their ability to be professional, to be ethical, and to be critical. And how I see it is that this is just a choice. Artists can choose to meet the expectations of the market or not. They can choose to engage in the market the way they want. They can choose where to set the boundaries that makes them feel comfortable, which, by the way, we see it a lot in many artists. Some of them are more comfortable with the market, some less. So, you know, it's a choice again. So it's a choice that artists have. It's a choice that you all have, as long as they know the principles and foundations of how it works. Because if you don't have the knowledge, the choice is not really available. And understanding how the art market works can be very useful for many different reasons. So one of the examples is, let's say you are a performance artist, right? So for all of those of you who are performance artists, let's see how this could be useful to you. So if you have a good idea of how the performance market in terms of structure and dynamics compares to the overall art market or the painting market or whatever market, you are likely to use your time more efficiently than the average performance artist who doesn't. So because think about this, the art market is small, it's niche, if you compare it with other markets, other sectors and so on. So it's very small. So just imagine how small the performance art, the market for performance art is within that small market. It's tiny, it's tiny. So the size already poses a challenge. But among the benefits of understanding how it works, what the size is, what the structure is, all these sort of things, you can better manage your time and you can stop wasting it by contacting people that have little interest in your work. And instead you can focus on building relationships with those who do. And this is a basic market research. And I'm sure that a lot of artists already do, and most of you already do these sort of things. But perhaps you don't have all the tools and the understanding to be more productive and effective when you do all these sort of things. And I ask you all in your minds, what is the problem with that? Is that actually putting you at risk as an artist to come across as a sellout? And I doubt it. I'm going to give you another example. This is a personal example, which, by the way, I was speaking to someone last week, and he runs a residency program, and it was interesting because he has the same, this happens to him as well. And sometimes I receive emails from artists asking me to include them in exhibitions or help them to sell their art, and, you know, like all these sort of emails. And for me, it's shocking, it's disconcerting, because I'm not a curator, I'm not a gallerist, I'm not an art advisor, so I don't understand why I get contacted about this. And I think it's very simple, it's just not having a plan, shooting cold emails, expecting to have a result that can make a significant impact in their careers. And it's very unlikely that a tactic like this can yield some results. And even if they do, it's at the great cost of time, of effort, of self-esteem. Because if you shoot 100 cold emails and you don't get much response, so obviously in your eyes, 100 people are not responding to you, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's go to question number 2. One question, please. The second question aims at estimating the interest of artists in learning how to write better applications, such as those for residency programs, for grants, for funding, even for jobs in some cases, and any kind of application. And here we have an overwhelming interest in this topic. There's almost equal parts of respondents who are interested and extremely interested in this topic, for a total of 85%. And these results make sense to me, at least, and I can think of a few reasons. The first one is because a large percentage of artists feel they like writing skills and communication skills in general because they actually do. And the origin of this, and I'm going to go here, is that many of our teachers, of your teachers, told you many times, and then throughout your career as well, that your work must speak for itself. And I'm sure you have heard this a lot. Your work speaks for itself. And if you see this quote here, the origin of this notion can be found in classical antiquity. So we are making all these decisions in our lives today based on this notion that is quite old. And art doesn't speak for itself necessarily, and especially not contemporary art, or at least to avoid controversy, it doesn't always speak for itself, or it doesn't speak for itself always in every single context, if that makes sense. And it doesn't because art is not evident. It's far from evident. And something that speaks for itself must be evident. So you can try to send 100 applications with just an image of your work. No text, no explanations, no captions, just your work, and see what comes of it. You know, I don't think you're going to have very good results from that exercise, because it does need to be accompanied by words, by text, by explanations, by quotes, by ideas, by captions, and all the rest of it. And even it can also gain a lot by being in the company of other works of art. And this is also why we enjoy so much very well curated exhibitions, because it kind of brings this, it makes the art speak for itself, if you like. And I think that this idea of the thing speaks for itself, or the art speaks for itself, is the source, or one of the main sources, which allow that a significant number of artists feel unable to express themselves confidently and eloquently about them and their work. And this is something that appeared a lot in the open-ended questions that I will talk about later. But it was repetitive. Artists saying, everything is clear in my mind, but then in my head, but then when I have to say it, it's like a blender. It's like a blender, and then you don't know what to say, you don't know how to explain it, you don't know how to say it. So I think that we took this phrase too seriously, the art speaks for itself, and somehow we failed to see it in a more symbolic dimension, which I think we could do from now onwards. And communication skills obviously are instrumental to make things happen. It's instrumental to make residencies happen, to make grants happen, to make a lot of things happen, to make this talk today happen. And those of us who have had the opportunity to read artist applications as part of a jury or a selection panel, or in my case, I have to read many final essays and so on. These people that as part of their job have to do this, will say that most applications, I don't think I will get this wrong, perhaps you disagree, but I think most applications are not clear, are not specific. They tend to use waffling language, and they are largely unsubstantiated. And that makes it very difficult for the artist to be able to find a space in the market as well. And you can also see how this is likely to affect them in many ways. It's quite easy to see. So for example, imagine that you send an application to a residency program you really want to do. So you send the application and there's another 70 or 100 artists who are applying for the same space as you, or one space or two spaces or three spaces. And you only have a very small group of people actually reading the application. Forget about the romanticized idea that you have a group that is spending hours reviewing your application and doing more research and these sort of things. Especially for smaller institutions, it's the same person or the same group who are not only reading the application, they are also doing admin, running the space, like doing a lot of things on top of everything they also have to do in their personal lives, in their homes, and so on. So only that scenario, just imagine these people, this one person, two people are going to spend minutes in reading your application, which means that in practice, the texts that are clear, well written, specific, will have more chances to be selected than those who are not. And again, I'm not talking about the quality of the art. I'm not talking about anything that has to do with the conceptual development, artistic development. I'm just talking about professional skills, and specifically here about communication skills. And when I speak to art professionals, curators and directors in residency programs, what I see is that this is a problem that doesn't discriminate regions, and it doesn't discriminate ages. Let's go now to the third question. In this question, the idea was to capture the interest in learning how to present yourself and your work clearly and effectively, both in writing and orally. And again, these results are categorical, like those we saw in question number 2. We have 42% of respondents who are extremely interested in learning these skills, and 38% who are interested. So again, it totals 78%. And this question is very similar to the previous one, only that this one focuses also in oral communication. And I decided to ask them separately to improve my chances of getting more truthful results. Because when a question or a topic is important in your research, and in my research, communication was very important, because I believe this is one of the main problems we have as a sector. It's worth asking it twice in different ways so you can get a richer understanding of the different dimensions in which a problem like communication can manifest in artists' lives. So I won't say much about it, because I think with what I said before, it applies to this question as well. And again, I'm going to talk more about this in the open-ended questions, so questions 6 and 7. And I will give you a few examples of how artists said that this poses an obstacle for them in their careers. I hear this beautiful book that Joanna, that I see her, she's connected, she wrote a beautiful essay about in the book, where this book is featured as well. Question 4 and question 5. So I put them together because they talk about digital. So here I ask respondents their level of interest in acquiring digital skills. And the one on your left asks about interest in learning how to develop a website and produce content. And 26% of respondents said they were extremely interested, and 43% said they were interested. And So which is basically 70% of respondents wanting to gain this knowledge. I'm particularly interested in those in that 30% for whom this doesn't seem to be relevant. And I'm interested for two reasons. The first one is because they might be missing out on a very relevant and very powerful communication tool. Because if you think about the website as your home in the digital world, but one that has no limits, it's a very powerful thing to have, not only to show your portfolio, it's also the fact that only through your website, you can have control of how you want to be seen by your audience, how you want to communicate your art practice, how you want to let curators and community know about the things that you do and you care for. Because normally in the offline world, you will have a gallerist or you will have someone else that will be the messenger of this, of what you're interested in, but in your website, you have that control of showing yourself in the way that is most important and relevant to you. So, and again, when we were talking about the main problems at the beginning, and when there is issues of feeling invisible, of not being able to make or to find a space in a competitive world and so on, the website can be a very good way to try to overcome that. And the second reason that I find interesting is that artists' websites, most of the times they are beautiful, but they are very user unfriendly, if you like, because they are conceived almost as an extension of their work and their art practice. So they lack user experience fundamentals and basics. And this is the reason why I was asking also this question, because I think the pandemic also revealed from art fairs and e-learning that replicating traditional models to deliver online experiences don't work very well. The digital world is a different environment which requires digital tactics, and producing content for an online environment, whether it is in education, in my case, for example, you can see very clearly the differences between online education and offline education. And you can see how difficult it is for people used to offline education to migrate online. So when you see that those things behave completely different is when the idea of how to navigate digital spaces, experience design, all these sort of things become very important also for artists' websites. And the second one, as you see, is about digital marketing, SEO. And this is the one that receives less percentage, but nonetheless quite important. And I will show you here the summary of these questions. So we have writing better applications with 85% of respondents interested in this. Presentation skills, 78%. Art market, 76%. Website and content development, 69%. And digital marketing, 54%. This is the interest in these topics, which I think is quite impressive. Now let's go to the second part of this survey. And the next two questions the aim was asking artists to write down their thoughts and their interests as opposed to ask them about their level of interest. And because it was an exercise of self-expression, that posed a challenge for me to present the results. So the way I solved this was developing a set of 6 tags, which I then assigned to each response. Sometimes the response can have 2 or 3, depending on what artist said. And the idea was just through these tags to be able to show you in a more clear way the results and the conclusions. So the first tag that I've used is personal development, which I assigned to comments that spoke about issues of mental health, of feeling of insecurity, of lack of confidence, low self-esteem, and all the rest of it. The second tag that I've used is promotion and sales. And I have used it to tag comments that relate to making art, how to sell it, how to make money from it, and also things relating to marketing and to promotion, how to reach new audiences. The third tag is networking and communication skills. And this, which I think there is social and communication skills, but then I changed the wording. And this tag allowed me to identify comments that had to do with networking skills, understanding how to approach people like curators, like gallerists, like collectors, how to interact with them in social situations like art fairs. There were a few comments about how can I speak to people in art fairs without bothering them, which is quite interesting. It's a very interesting concept. It's how many artists did ask about networking skills advice. So that tag, the networking and communication skills, refers to the entire universe of possible interactions with people, from what in other sectors we can call the elevator pitch, to writing a residency application or a job application or anything of the sort. The fourth tag that I created is career management and productivity. And I use this to identify comments that have to do with learning time management skills, things like, for example, sort emails effectively, which I had a few comments about that, how to manage time, how to file taxes, how to manage a team, and all those things that have to do with the career and with like a day-to-day management. The fifth tag that I used is art market, and I use this to identify comments that had to do with how galleries work, how museums work, how acquisition committees work. And also something that came quite often is how to price a work of art, the value of art, how to put a price on my work, all these sort of things, which again was quite, was a comment that came often in the survey. And the final tag, number 6, that I used is digital. And this has to do obviously with comments that have to do about social media, how to write posts, how to build more engaging websites, how to reach people online, all these sort of things. So I'm showing you here the results now, but before kind of talking through them, I want to talk about the limitations of doing what I did, because obviously I thought, if I do tags, it's going to be easier for me to show you the results. It's going to be simpler and more easy. But obviously, as I was going through all the comments, the richness, the emotional content of all these messages was something that is very difficult. It's impossible to capture in tags. And obviously, when I was doing this through question 6 and question 7, I found that, I can acknowledge it's reductive and it neutralizes the voice that came powerfully from this exercise of reflection. And it doesn't, I want to show this, but on the basis that this doesn't make justice to everything that they actually said that was super powerful. And I really still don't know how I can present this in a better way, because I still have to maintain anonymity, and I committed to presenting the results in an aggregate form. So that is something I have to maintain. So I don't know, perhaps in the future I can write a paragraph where I can paraphrase all the things that they said and try to be more illustrative of these things. But if you have ideas, let me know. But for now, tags is what we have. So this is the results. So we have our market came first, social communication skills second, promotion and sales third, career productivity fourth, personal development five, and again, digital marketing at the end. And now in the seventh question, the last question, what I asked respondents was to list the 3 main pain points they struggle with and for which they would wish to learn a skill to help them solve this problem. So advancing their careers can be more, can be easier, or it can flow in a better way. And here the composition is quite different because we have promotion and sales coming first. And of course, this had to do a lot with how can I sell art? How can I can live from what I do? How can I make money from what I do? Then we have networking and communication skills, which ties with what I said in question 2 and question 3. Then career management and productivity, our market, personal development, and digital. And it's important to mention here in the last 2 questions that these questions are not about the level of interest they have in these subjects, like the first 5 questions. The interest here is that there's no interest here, is they can write what they are interested in, what is a problem for them, what represents an obstacle, and this is what artists have respond. So my objective with these 2 questions was more like targeting, with the first one, targeting more the rational side of artists. And the second one aimed to target more the emotional side, if you like. And I guess, in other words, what I was trying to do was focusing on what you need in the first one. And the second is how you feel, or what you feel about these things. So just as I come near the end of this presentation, I have shown you the survey, the questions that I asked, the responses of the artists to these questions. And what is evident is how relevant all these topics are for most of them. Even digital marketing, which was a less popular topic, is still something that is appealing to the majority of respondents. And assigning the tags to the last 2 responses, I did it as an objective exercise. I just was trying to identify what they wanted to say in terms of the skills they wanted to learn. But so I try to be as objective as possible. But as I was going through the comments and the descriptions on the pain points that they struggle with, I believe that many of them were trying to put into words what their deepest fears are, in plural, which I can confidently summarize in 2. The first one that I have already mentioned is the fear of selling out, trying to find that balance between the institutional sector and the market and the money. And the second one is the fear of having to give up their art, their practice, because they can't afford it, because they can't make a financial life out of it. And at this point, when I come to these 2 main or deepest fears, I want to say that these results are not relevant to artists only, because as an ecosystem, the art world is an ecosystem. We can't just wash our hands that easily and say, well, that's artists' problems, it's the matter of artists, they have to go and solve them and come back with, like better skills and all these sort of things. Because I think it's relevant to every single person and professional who believes and they care about the art world to care about these things too. And art must be the only profession I can think of right now. I'm sure there are others, but now I cannot think about, I've been thinking about this. I think it's the only one that wants to keep artists completely in the dark on how the field in which they operate works. Everyone else has a better idea. Curators, gallerists, collectors, and so on. They kind of know how all this works, but artists don't. So for me, this is an invitation for all stakeholders to reflect on the kind of expectations and pressure that artists carry on their shoulders, that we are putting on the artist. And it's also an opportunity to reflect on how the art world expects them to focus on the work and find ways to make a living, but without allowing them to explore ways to monetize their practice and keep mentally healthy. So it's like something that is quite difficult to navigate, because we are teaching them, or we are constantly telling them that the tools and the knowledge to do this in this sector, in the sector in which they work, are sinful. So they should kind of prevent knowing about them. And this information and formation is something that most industries proactively deliver to their main actors. So you go to different sectors and they will try to make the main actors know about these things and be able to navigate it in a more comfortable way. And I want to, at this stage, draw attention to the role of institutional players, for example, who judge artistic practices not only according to the merit of the work, which is great, but also on the artist's ability to do nothing else but focus on the work, at the risk of penalizing professional knowledge and financial liberties that could allow artists to develop sustainable and balanced careers. And another question after doing this survey that I ask myself is, what's the point of forcing the notion that the art market is something that artists shouldn't know about, when most of them in private want to know about it anyway, as you can see in the survey. And I don't have concrete answers for most of these questions yet. And I do appreciate the perceived risk of certain market applications over our artist practices. I understand the danger, I understand the risk. And above all, I'm an advocate of the institutional endorsement process of art. And I personally place high value on institutions and their role in validating art. And perhaps that makes me someone traditional, I don't know, but for me that is very important, and this is why I'm focusing on this type of artist. But at the same time, I don't understand why we need to put off or put artists off from learning professional skills and learning the foundations and principles of the market where they work. And I can say now with conviction, after having done this research, that we have work to do, all of us, but also we have stigmas to overcome. And I want to thank you again for coming here. And I think we only have 2 minutes, but if Natalie says it's okay, I'm happy to answer a few questions for 5 more minutes or 10 more minutes.
I think it's great. If people have questions that they want to ask, I think it's an opportunity. And Francesca, if you have 2 minutes, it would be yes. Good.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Did you hear me?
Sorry. I thought I would have 40 minutes to say this.
Completely open. So who has a question? Who would like to ask a question? There are questions in the chat, but it's not clear whether they're questions or... Lulu, you take over. It would be great.
That's a first question. Where do you get the market research?
This research, I did it myself. So these are the questions that I designed, and through the... you mean other type of information? Okay, there are plenty sources about this. The idea of this survey for example, as you know, and you will read in my bio, I teach about the art market at Sotheby's Institute, and I'm constantly talking about these topics. My motivation to do this is to be able to produce in the future. I don't want to talk much about this because I don't have it, it's not clear yet in my mind, but the idea is to do a global program where artists can gain these professional skills and understanding in an environment that is arty, if that makes sense, rather than our market related.
Our next question is, while I understand communication and context will help with artist success, it still seems that success is a function of luck. Being a well-connected network adjacent to the market players, is success still largely about luck?
Sorry, that is a long question. Where is it?
It's asked by Ben Bogart.
So Ben, what I understand, communication and concept will help the artist success. It seems that success is a function of luck, being a well-connected network. I mean, you can see this in many different ways. The reason why you have a connected network is also because you are a good networker. And being a good networker means that you know how to network and you have good communication skills and so on. So I gave you the part that luck has something, but also looking the opportunities. Also, depending on where you are, being targeted, having a plan. So it's not only about luck, and it's not only about, you know, this happens to someone else. My whole point with this research is that you as an artist, you can create a lot of opportunities when you understand some of the principles and the basics of this. And you can improve your communication skills. You can write, if you write a better application for a residency program, you have more opportunities to be accepted, which means that you will gain a network, you will gain exposure, you will get visibility. And this is the way that careers develop. Absolutely. Did I answer your question? I hope. Lulu, who else?
We have a question coming in. How did you do selection of the respondents?
No, I mean, I asked the Delfina Residency Unlimited, all the 6 institutions that helped me to send this survey to the artists. This is anonymous, so I don't know who responded what. The idea so they have very extensive databases, and I got 200-ish responses, and it's based on those. But that allowed me to target artists, again, that are interested in the institutional career. Because again, if you are an artist that is interested only in the commercial aspect of it, and you only operate in that sector, you are not going to have these problems necessarily. It's only in trying to find that balance when all this happens.
I have one thing to say, and I know I'm in the dark because I'm sorry about that.
Sorry. Can I just mention, Jose just said something here. It says, luck smiles to those she finds prepared. I agree with that, and I think it's kind of the essence of what I said. Sorry, Lulu.
You know, this is Natalie, but what I want to say, because at RU we're very used to reading applications, I would say that sometimes if applications are too formulated, you know, in this kind of formulaic kind of language, which the artist thinks is the right way to speak, and it's not their own voice, for me, authenticity is extremely important. And sometimes an artist will not write properly, or for me, it doesn't really matter. For what really matters is that the authenticity of the voice of the artist is present. So, you know, an application might not be that well written, but if there's, you know, the voice, once again, that for me is the most important thing.
Thank you. Do we have another question? Artists are asked to write to explain their work. Writers are not asked to do a painting to explain their work. Should reviewing processes be different for artists? Well, again, I don't know. My starting point is that the thing doesn't speak for itself, as I said before. I struggle to believe how can you apply to something in a different country. Let's say you are in this country, you want to apply to a different country, and many artists around the world also want to be part of that, and you cannot use words that accompany obviously your work. And again, I mean, I said I'm not talking about the quality of the work, and this is something that people like Natalie or like Jose or like Aaron or like Alessio are going obviously to take into account, but it's how you also provide more context to what you want to do, especially because many of these applications are for programs that have a curatorial focus, right? So it does have to fit in a focus. But again, there are many ways. Not always you have to apply to things. Through relationships and conversations, you can also get other opportunities. And this is why I was talking about networking and personal skills in terms of connecting with other people. I didn't say here, but in case you want to follow me, and especially to those of you who have said, where can I learn about these things and the art market and so on, if you want to follow me on Instagram, you will be likely to read a few interesting things, I hope.
Francesca, if I'm correct, this is Natalie again speaking. You're preparing a course, right? That it's too early to talk about, but you're preparing new tools for artists to be able to use.
Yes, absolutely. So again, as I was saying, this research is to find evidence that how I felt is representative of how artists feel, which I think is I mean, it supports that idea. And with the aim of building a program, if you like, a sort of accelerator program. I don't want to talk much about this because I don't know the structure yet. But again, if you follow me, I'm going to be talking about this. Nonetheless, in November or so, I'm going to release a few capsules online on my website that you will see on Instagram with, like short capsule type of online courses that you can take that relates to all the topics we have discussed today. And I want to tell you a bit about the training program, and I will, sorry, but I might change the structure, but I just want to tell you, it might be a global program of 9 months in which we will see all these things, focusing on professional skills only for the art world, artists and curators.
Fantastic. Does anyone have any more questions?
Expensive? I have no idea. This is why I hope not. And this is one of the reasons why I didn't want to say much about it, because it's not clear to me yet. I'm not going to be the only one to deliver this, because I think there's so many interesting people in the art world. Not only, I mean, curators, but also collectors, also patrons, also writers who can contribute a lot with this. I'm going to give you an example. Well, so I don't know how expensive this is going to be, because it will depend on how many people can participate. But what I can tell you is that what I want to create is something very valuable and something that actually works for you and for the artist. So just give me time, and then I'll give you more more information. But something that I want to say about these things is that one of the things we lack a lot in the art world is this comparative analysis of this. I sent this, and And for example, I didn't get it, but someone else who did sent this, and we don't have that access to see, okay, I made this mistake, next time I can do this. And this is something that, this is a webinar that I do in my courses at Sotheby's, where I, before the final assignment, I show participants, I give them tips and I show them good paragraph introductions that people have written in the past, the ones that are not so good. So they are able to see and compare and contrast. And since I started doing this, the presentations improved 3 times. I mean, it was quite remarkable. Marcus. Hi.
Marcus is next to me. I am Christian. Nice to meet you. It's not necessarily a question, it's just a point of perspective or view, is that I think it would be very valuable to expand your research to practices that not necessarily convey the art market. Like there are certain, I mean, like you see, of course, there were 70% of people who said we are interested in the art market. There was 30% who not necessarily, because I think there's a lot of different economical models that one can sustain their practice. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very necessary, and there are certain works which are just non-conveyable to a certain conformism of the art market. And I think that was just really important to say that, you know, like there are certain socially engaged works that are actually require a lot different approach and many different skills to somebody to sustain their practice.
Thank you. Such as?
Such as, I mean, like, for example, I have friends who are socially engaged practitioners and work with migrant communities in Mexico. They have, I mean, like, they produce some work, but their interest is more how to create a sustainable economy where they can create schools. There are artists who are working with agriculture. They create work products that they can eventually sell, not necessarily in the art market, but actually, you know, they make farms. There are artists who, I mean, like, these are largely, so, you know, I mean, like, but there are artists who are just entirely not necessarily interested in the market economy of it. I mean, like,
what you're saying is key, and thank you for saying this, because what you're saying is very good, and it's something that I think I sort of mentioned it, but perhaps it was not too clear. And it's that ability that perhaps sometimes we don't give artists to explore other ways of making a sustainable life, as you were saying. So just to give you an example, you see The Little Sun by Olafur Eliasson, because you said something about agriculture and working with communities and all these sort of things. And this is a project that comes from an artist that specifically that one is not meant to necessarily circulate in the art market, because you know what I'm talking about, The Little Suns, and it has a whole concept behind that is more about communities and taking electricity somewhere else. So it's but this is an artist who is doing this that operates in a completely different economy, as you were saying. It's not the art world. And these are things that I think are key to explore, that artists can see how many different distribution channels are available to them without that fear of, oh, I cannot do this because then I'm not going. And this is why I was saying about selling out and the idea of sellout and all these things. Some artists go completely frozen with the idea of exploring these other avenues that you're saying. You're completely right.
And just one more thing, because you said you're in London, do you know art practices in London that are actually exploring other ways of working it out rather than with the market economy?
Yes, I actually had last week a fantastic presentation from an artist, Tate. Let me find her name. Sorry, she's lovely. Let me just find it, and I cannot pronounce it. Sorry, that's the other problem. And she was amazing. And she was also talking about the different, here it is, Pulomi Basu. And she was talking about the different distribution channels. She said that those words, I was amazed by an artist saying these words. And she showed us sort of graphic that where she explained the different distribution channels where her work circulates. So she does not only photography that could, for example, circulate in our market, but also she does like, for example, books. She does a lot of activism. So she works with foundations and government. No, I don't know if government, sorry, perhaps she's going to be mad if I say this, I don't know. But foundations that help her to raise funds and all these things. She raised £2 million for bringing toilets to India. It's fantastic. I mean, the sort of penetration that she has. So yeah, that is an artist that definitely we can have as an example of how artists can find different ways of making it work. It's not about only painting. It's not about only, you know, it's about also maybe little sons. I mean, whatever makes you feel empowered. I think that's the key.
Thanks for the answer.
Thank you. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if anyone has another question or you want to leave it here or.
I think it's great. It's 8:16 p.m. in Paris right now. Thank you so much for attending this. And if you want to be in touch with Francesca, as she said, please join her on her Instagram. And then if you have any specific questions, you can send them to me and I'll send them to Francesca. So thank you very much, Francesca. And we look very much forward to finding out about this future project that you have. And
thank you very much, Natalie.
Interesting questions were raised, and also the complexity of the situation is very vast. And you know, we've just broached a very, very thin layer of many, many more complex issues that exist for artists. And our role as RU is to, you know, bring in people like you to hear what you say and hopefully, you know, be able to provide some form of support. And so I'm very grateful to you for having agreed to do this presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I see a lot of my friends, and it's lovely to see you. And hi, Marcus, Joanne, Diogo, Inti was there too, Graciela. Anyway, I'm very, very happy to see you. Gabriela. À bientôt.
A bientôt. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Ciao.